is Cyrus Kambata, and I am the Artistic Director of the Seattle International Dance Festival. This year, the festival had to be canceled due to social distancing measures of COVID-19. So we are re-envisioning our festival as a virtual event. Our mission is to bring the world of contemporary dance to Seattle's doorstep. So we're going to continue to bring the world to you through SIDF Plus, our first ever virtual edition. SIDF Plus will be one part travelogue, one part expose, looking at the artistic process during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic with live interviews, performances, rehearsal footage, and interactive opportunities with SIDF artists in Seattle and worldwide. You might even find yourself dancing along. At the same time, this is a fundraiser for the Seattle International Dance Festival. Much of the festival's support is program specific, and without the programs, considerable financial support has been lost. If you feel inspired and this broadcast brings you enjoyment, or perhaps brings a part of the world and its artists just a little closer to home, please donate to our Give Big campaign going on right now through May 6th. You can visit our Give Big page under Seattle International Dance Festival or use the links on this page. Your support is greatly appreciated during this challenging time. So now we turn to our first guest from Oslo, Norway, Kari Hawaz, who is scheduled to perform at SIDF opposite Kambata Dance Company. Hi, Kari. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Cyrus. Thank you for inviting me.
Kari's hometown, Oslo, is the capital city of Norway, which is about 850 miles further north than Seattle's latitude. Kari, before we get into your artistic process, can you tell us a little bit what the weather is like in Norway?
Well, now it's springtime is coming, so it's getting warmer, thankfully. About half the country is above the Arctic Circle. Norway, Oslo is in the south, so in the winter it can get down to -20 here in Oslo.
And during the summer you have white nights. It never gets completely dark.
That's true, yes. We are the land of the midnight sun, all above the Arctic Circle in the summer. The sun doesn't set in part of the summer months, so you have the white nights.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about how COVID-19 has affected you as an artist?
Oh, this has been, like all dance artists worldwide, it's quite dramatic. Dance is about human connection and being together, and it's a live art. So all our touring, performing, all our plans for the spring and the summer has been canceled or postponed. We have worked, a really long time, over a couple of years, fundraising to make the tours we planned coming to Seattle and New York and the States this spring happen. So hopefully we can do that next year. It is quite a bit of a financial impact as well. I don't know the scope of that yet. My work is mostly publicly funded here in Norway from national funders such as the Arts Council to the City of Oslo and local smaller foundations. I don't know what they're doing yet. They don't know what they're doing yet, if they're going to be able to make some emergency funding available to cover the financial losses we're facing right now. What I do know that the funders have been stating is that I can keep the grants we already received to postpone events for next year. So that's comforting knowing that. So hopefully we'll make it happen in the future. Yes.
And hopefully they won't be canceled. They'll just be postponed, whatever they are. Are there any silver linings or positives that have come out of this massive worldwide lockdown for you? Has it generated any ideas or different opportunities in any way, perhaps?
Well, it's an interesting time, it's going inside, being introverted, having time to reflect. I think as a dance artist, to me, dance is about also practicing presence and practicing being in the current moment and being flexible and adaptable to what is happening around you. And that has been become more and more a philosophy of how I work, also as a method to take in what's happening at the moment. As a person, I enjoy a good challenge. I enjoy facing a challenge, facing an obstacle, and not knowing what's going to happen. I think maybe that's part of what drew me to dance originally also. And this whole idea of how to negotiate obstacles, finding new ways and paths through them has been a theme in my work, has been growing lately. So I really find it, that this situation has put that into the forefront. I do think as a citizen, I have for a while been concerned with climate change, and that has become a part of my work, also translating into my work last 6 years or so. Be Like Water is the name of the performance we were supposed to take to Seattle. That was originally created 5 years ago and was the first of my works responding to a relationship to nature and climate change. So over the past years as a company, I've been touring a lot, and I've been questioning more and more the sustainability of that international touring model that we know, looking for always more ways to connect to local communities. Already we always offer workshops, talks, different ways to do that, but I've been thinking a lot about how we could find new models of more sustainable ways of exchanging artistically on an international level. I think this whole global pandemic, this pause that we're in, really pushes these issues to the forefront. How can we connect maybe internationally, the local versus the global? How is this whole video conferencing and all these new tools we're learning, how will that be part of that? I think we're in the middle of a huge transition somehow. I'm excited to be part of that and see what I can contribute and what will happen.
How many dancers are there in your company?
Well, my company is organized on a project basis. So I don't have a permanent company in the traditional sense. I hire dancers and collaborators for each project that we do. So all the dancers working with me are freelance, working for others as well. This is how the funding system works here in Norway also. But some dancers have worked with me for several years through different projects. Right now in the Be Like Water work, there are 6 dancers. And also I have worked with the same lighting designer and costume designer through a few projects through a few years. Actually, with Be Like Water is a piece from 2015 that we have been touring for quite a while. So now for this tour, I was engaging a new cast, mostly a new cast of dancers. So there would be 3 brand new dancers in the work, reworking some sections. As the original cast, some of those dancers have moved on, like life happens, and the dancers in Be Like Water, I do work with an international cast. So at the moment, I have a Spanish dancer who's based in Barcelona, a Danish based in Copenhagen, and an Italian dancer, Ottavio, is actually based in Berlin. The 3 women are Norwegian, so they are here in Oslo. So the new cast would be Andrea, Gerd-Kajsa, and Katja joining the men at this time. Yeah.
And you also...
Kajsa and Ottavio has performed the work actually since 2016, so they know the work really well.
Can you tell us how you make dances, or how do you build a section of dance, for instance?
How do I build a section of dance? Yes. As a creator movement, I mean, I draw on all my own experiences as a dance artist, which spans almost 30 years actually now. All my experience of working for as a dancer, but also with different types of movement in dance. I do like to work on what I call outside inside or micro macro scales. So working with layers and offering the dancers internal motivation for movement. How can they be in a physical state that translates to something of the major theme I'm working on in the performance. So like with water, for instance, thinking of how you use the body is 70–80% water, you know, how we have all these fluids. So working with that inner sense of fluids, different qualities of water, as opposed to the sensation of outside forces pushing on the body. And then putting those things in juxtaposition. I both create movement on my own body with the dancers, manipulating them, giving them tasks that they work out. So it's really a dialogue all the way.
How do you like your dancers to interact with you? I mean, do they give you feedback about how something feels internally, or do you have a kind of a way you like to see them interact with you?
Well, they can, mostly I'm looking for, we work on practice together. You know, I usually establish like a training practice that has a foundation in maybe some martial art or philosophy connecting to the movement, working from somatics, understanding of the body. So we establish like a common ground of physicality that we have as a starting point. To work from. And from there, yeah, they need to be adaptable. They need to know in the studio, often I work with giving dancers different tasks. So there are several dancers moving at the same time. And the dancers that have worked with me for a while know that if I see something out my eye, I might go, whoa, catch on to that, you know? So even if they joke around, it might be included in the show if something pops up that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. We should use that. So this, I like to play around a lot, and having that playful rehearsal. Enjoying our time together is important to me, even if we try to speak about difficult or serious themes and matter. I think we can have a good time doing it.
You are also a teacher, is that correct? You teach dance?
That is correct, yes. I'm associate professor at the Institute Norwegian College of Dance, which is an institute under the larger Christiania University College here in Oslo. I've been teaching there and developing the BA program in dance and performance for about 15 years in different roles, off and on, yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you demonstrate how you might teach someone to do a movement or two, or one of your own phrases? I know it's hard to do that in a little tiny box, but how you might show us something along those lines?
Yeah, well, in responding to maybe a task, like responding to outer graphics, like here I see on the screen, I have those, you know, how can I move with the graphics of something, maybe changing that. And then we can also adding, okay, now I'm loosening it up and juxtaposing some ideas that are in contrast, like the softness of something and the sharpness of a line, and then the quality of something. Yeah. I like to give specific kinetic tasks, maybe. So working with this flow has been a big part of the Be Like Water with the waterworks, but then water can also be ice, so which is more like a sharper popping idea. So I look for contrast in movement also, and levels, and yeah, contrast with the inner outer landscapes like I'm talking about. And this translates in my teaching. I always work with imagery, working a lot with imagery and giving an internal motivation for what we try to do physically. as a motivation for also technical, difficult things, or trying to find a form, but coming from moving it from the inside out, as opposed to putting your body into a form. We try to find the task that will create that form we're looking for the dancer. Yeah. If that makes sense. I don't know. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. What do you think you can learn from taking or watching dance? What are different than, say, another art form?
Well, I think dance is it's the most human art form to me in a way, you know. It's a very pure form of expression, expressing ourselves physically, that immediate dialogue and connection when people meet in the same space. You know, we all read body language, energy instantly when we meet another person, and dance really speaks on that very primal level, that very direct, you know, emotional, primal communication. I think dance really can move people emotionally, that it has that potential, and it also has the potential for connection, for coming together, creating community. All of those aspects with dance are, of course, really difficult to translate through video, to translate through a screen in the situation we're now. All of those human and live, you know, moments.
Yes, it'll be nice to finally meet you in person at some point.
It would, yes, it would, yes. Although we're lucky to at least have video these days, yes.
Which I'm grateful for. I'm always amazed at the transformation of dance from studio to stage. Can you tell us how you view the elements that transform dance into what the audience sees, like the costumes or the lights? How do you work with costume, for instance, or the lighting designers, a lighting design?
Well, I really love the magic of the stage, and especially also the power of lighting design, how light can change, you know, from cold to warm, from a vast open space to narrow down to something really intimate on the stage. So I work closely with lighting designer. For Be Like Water, we integrated live video projections into the design, so the light is actually moving with and in relation with the dancer, creating these different landscapes, moving landscapes. And I talked about how I work, you know, on a macro, large scale, small scale, micro, macro. So for costume design, lighting design, I always come up with some kind of texture or concept. For the costumes and for Be Like Water, I was really inspired by the colors of the glaciers, the colors in the nature of water. And then I started discovering also visiting, actually in the United States, I was visiting Salt Lake City. I was performing in Salt Lake and visiting in Salt Lake and seeing Salt Lake is actually reducing as well. And this big salt desert sort of landscape, it looks the same as the desert landscape in the Middle East when I visited the Dead Sea, the colors of that. And I studied also the Aral Seas, another big inland water that is a sea that is disappearing because of climate change and the salt in the earth. This landscape, the colors of that became part of the color scheme for the costumes and for this work. And then I was also inspired by how can we work with costumes that are not not gendered. So everyone is in, it's not a gendered costume. It's actually inspiration from the worker clothes that agricultural workers around the world traditionally have used in different ways. So it's a combination of these color palettes and a take on, you know, simplifying kind of simple costume. Thinking about environment, I also work with a costume designer on us using natural fibers, these kind of things in the costumes. So the costumes are made of sustainable fabric, natural fibers that's a detail, but it became an important detail to me to keep in the vein of the theme of the work.
That's wonderful. What's your absolute favorite part of what you do? I mean, the process, making a dance, just the pinnacle, why you're doing it.
Yeah, why am I doing it? I think it's two parts. I mean, I do love, I love the moment of performing, the performance moment when I see how the work, what we make, connect with an audience. I love I'm often in the back with my technician, and I love watching the audience, getting a sense of the feel, you know, in the theater, the anticipation, or, you know, get a sense of what works, what doesn't work, how they respond. Seeing my work through the audience's eyes, I really understand what I do and the communication more. So that is part of one thing I love. I also love the creating process with a dancer, when it's really working in the studio, when something I've had a vision of idea of something and I see come together, and sometimes it comes together and it's even better than you thought it was going to be when you imagined yourself, that it, you know, it works in the studio, we have a good time together. That moment of you can call it flow, you know, when it all kind of comes together. Those are really precious.
What happens in those moments when it's not all coming together? What do you do when that happens? You have like the equivalent of writer's block.
Well, that happens, I think, in my experience working with dance and creating performance, there's always like this curve in the creating process. You start out with something and, you know, you go a certain distance with it creating, and then it comes like this resistance that something is not working, or you get stuck, or your idea is not working, or communication is not working, or and I think it's just, I've learned over time that, you know, you really have to trust your instincts, and sometimes you just have to kill your darlings. You know, you just have to throw it out, and maybe that idea was good, but it's not for now. Maybe it's for something else. And if I trust that and like kind of take a break sometimes and then try just something completely different or new, something else will happen and we push through that. I think it's part of the creative process that we have to, we always face, you know, those moments.
It's like now, we're all facing these moments. We're all in one big moment like this together, where nothing's working. Yeah, it's a challenge.
That's the challenge. So how can we find a way through it? I think that's what we're trying right now and doing right now.
Yes. Well, do you have any other last thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Well, I am really looking forward to coming to Seattle next year. We've been looking forward to visiting the West Coast and Seattle. I know there's quite a big Scandinavian and Nordic community in Seattle. And on a personal standpoint, actually, my mother, as a young woman, was a student at the University of Washington on a Fulbright scholarship in the 60s, yes. So she has told me a lot about Seattle and has a special place for Seattle in her heart. And I remember seeing the photos she's shown me. So it would be really a pleasure to come and visit Seattle and see those places for myself.
Well, Kari, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm sure our viewers do as well.
Thank you, Cyrus.
And Kari Hoas was not able to perform at Seattle International Dance Festival this year due to its cancellation. But you can see her work, Be Like Water, along with this year's lineup on SIDF Plus, the virtual edition of our 2020 festival, by going to www.seattleidf.org/virtual2020. Kari and her company, Kari Hoas Productions, will also be at the Seattle International Dance Festival live next June. So you can check out their work on our virtual festival beginning May 7th and see them in person in Seattle next year. If you would like to find out more about SIDF, please join our mailing list at our website, seattleidf.org. And if you enjoyed all or part of this broadcast this evening, we are asking for your help in raising funds to support the Seattle International Dance Festival, which was canceled this year and has lost program-specific funding and ticket sales. You can donate to our Give Big campaign ending May 6th at midnight. A link is provided on this page, or go to our website and select Donate on the homepage. Thank you again for joining us. Tune in again May 7th for our next SIDF Plus live recorded feature. Thank you.